So today I'm going to try something that I'm really excited about. I just received the new Gear PCB to make your own repros, and I got it from mortoffgames.com. It looks like this here. And so the instructions look pretty straightforward, so I'm going to give it a try. I'm just going to use the typical UV EPROM. That's just a 28, I think it's a 27C801. I can kind of show it a little bit. But they're pretty common. A lot of times we're used in like Super Nintendo repros and things like that. But I'm going to try using that just because that's what I have. But it can also utilize other flash chips, whether it's one-time write only, or you can just use the electrical programmable ones. But this little chip here is supposed to just be mounted in between this PCB. It kind of sits in the center. On here, you pay careful attention to notice just exactly where the number 1 is here, so the orientation of where this chip's going to go. So after we program this chip with our game ROM, we actually have to bend these pins on here. We have to bend them up flat. Then once those are bent up, then it should sit just in between these two here properly. Pay mind to when you look at this chip, because the orientation of pin 1 on our chip, pin 1 being right here, so there you see our notch, so this is pin 1. And so to get pin 1 to align up with pin 1 positioning on this board, I have to actually flip that upside down. And so with this particular chip, the UV window is going to be facing the bottom of this board, but it's going to simply sit in here, kind of like this. Of course, we're going to bend all those pins flat, but once they're all in there and in position, pin 1 of our chip here is going to line up with pin 1 here. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go ahead and actually flash this chip with our game ROM. From what I've been told and from the new instructions that I have, we don't actually have to pad our game ROM. So this is a 1 megabyte chip, and the game I'm going to put on it, I'm only going to put a half a megabyte game on it. From the example that I already saw on the internet, somebody did a Mega Man one, and so I think I'll go ahead and try that too. I don't happen to own that particular game, but I'd like to be able to play it, so I'm going to go ahead and flash Mega Man onto this chip. And that game's only 512 kilobytes, so it's half a meg. So when I actually program that game to this chip, it's only going to use half the size, but we don't have to fill or expand or pad the ROM in any way, so we're just going to flash it straight to this chip. And then after I flash this chip, we'll go ahead and we'll trim the pin, or we'll really kind of fold them flat first, and then we'll trim the pins to place it in the board. So I'm going to go ahead and flash that chip now. Alright, so now that we have our actual chip flashed, I'm going to fold these pins flat. I saw the technique that they had done on the instruction manuals. Looks like they use like a straight edge or something. I'm just going to use just a little tool that I have. It's meant to apply the glass to phone screens, like the protective glass. I'm going to go ahead and bend these pins straight, kind of using the same technique that they had in instructions. So I'm just going to put this in here, and let's see, kind of fold. All I'm doing is folding these down so they're flat. And do the same to the other side. Let's get it in there. Okay. I think that's pretty flat overall. You get the idea. It looks like this after it's been flattened out. So now that those are all fanned out, remember with our board here where the orientation is with pin 1. So if we look at our chip, how we had it before, simply take this chip, I'm going to flip it upside down, and then it's going to line up here. And you can kind of see, you know, how it's supposed to look. Then you look at, of course, on the bottom, it kind of sticks out like that. So, and that's really just done to give it enough clearance room to fit inside of a Game Gear cartridge shell. So I have to flip that around. Now, so what we have to do here, if you can see these pins they overhang a little bit, and you don't want any of the pins to touch any of the circuitry here, some capacitors and resistors and such, so we don't want to short it out. So we're just going to clip all of these pins just so they align better. So it's kind of a one-way trip, right? But we're just going to trim them up a little bit. I'm going to do both sides. I think actually it's really necessary to do one side that faces down. But it does look like it would just fit a little better if I just did it to both sides. So I'm just trimming up a little bit of both sides. And I think after all these are trimmed up, I think it's supposed to simply be just kind of drop in and solder. So, and then of course setting a couple jumpers, but they look to be pretty self-explanatory. So let's see. Let's see if these line up. They line up okay. I think I'm going to trim off just a little bit more, and then we'll go ahead and continue. Okay, so now I think we got everything trimmed up. You can see we just cut all the little pins on this guy. So we'll go ahead and place it back in our board. See, it doesn't really, now it's just touching the contact, so you don't have any overhang that could potentially touch anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and solder it down. Let's see if we can get this in a good spot. It's just got it lined up for the most part. Alright, start applying some solder here. And looks like we shifted just a little bit, so I'm going to move that while I can. There we go. I like that placement a little bit better. And I'm just going to go for a couple of these edge ones just to hold it in place so it doesn't slide around in either direction while I get the rest. Alright, now let's go ahead and do the rest. Okay, I'll go ahead and take care of the other side. Okay, now with both sides soldered down, you can see it looks like this. You can get a good view of it. But anyways, and here's the back. It kind of lines up, so you're going to flush with the back. It's a pretty even surface. And then, so from here, if you see like the back of a Game Gear cartridge, goes from the old game, I would sit in here, it's kind of like this. So it should be pretty even. Again, I got it from here, just an old business card I had from Mortov. But see, just to show that it kind of sits flush, that you put something over it. It's pretty even. So the last part is really just getting these jumpers set. And so you're going to see a couple of markings on here. I'll show you. The markings for 27C080 and a 27C080. Now this is a 27C801 chip. It's actually the same chip as the 080. So I'm just going to bridge these two connections here and then bridge these two connections here. And that should set it up for this particular game with this type of EPROM. Lastly, you'll see there's a marking for battery and everything. This is the actual board. They have a board with SRAM on it. This one does not have SRAM. If the SRAM was available, you'd see an additional chip right here. But you can also purchase ones from them that have that in case you want to make a game that saves. I only know a couple games for Game Gears that save, but if you happen to be doing any of the import games with like translation patches and things like that and you want it to be able to save, then just make sure you purchase the board that actually has the save or the SRAM chip on it. So let's go ahead and do those last couple points. Get those soldered in. There's two. So I'm going to bridge this one. One more. Okay. Got those two bridged now. So now, with any luck, this should work. Well, let's see. So to get this to place properly in your Game Gear, you're gonna have to put it in like a cartridge shell. I'm just gonna go lay it onto the back. The reason it needs this actual piece back here for enough width. So without that, it won't have the width to push against the contact pins inside of your Game Gear. So I'm not going to put the top cover on because, as you already know, taking the tops off is kind of annoying. So here's my Game Gear. So we'll put it in there. And let's see what happens. So that lined up. So this is my first time seeing this too, so I haven't seen if this works or what it would look like. So let's see what happens. I'll turn it on. There's a switch up here somewhere. There we go. And uh-oh. Looks like we've got a bit of a read error. So I don't know what's going on quite yet. So now that we see that problem, we know there's got to be some sort of problem here. Now, I don't know what it is yet. So we could try a few different things. Jumpers and everything appear to be correct. So we'll just have to try to experiment and see what happens. I'm going to try to first remove our bridge connection. And I'll probably go for the one, I'm thinking maybe here first. I'll try that and then we'll come back and revisit.